there, Latin 1. Here we are. I promised the accusative plus the... no, geez, wrong lesson. That's next year. The accusative or the ablative, you decide. Actually, you don't decide. I will tell you how to decide. So, sometimes you see the preposition in, and it means into. And sometimes you see the preposition in, and it means in. How are you to tell the difference? Simply. If it's accusative, it's into. In agros, in silvam, in hortum, in piscinam. They went into the fields. They went into the forest. They went into the garden. They went into the fish pond. If it's ablative, it's in. They are in the garden. They are in the forest. They are in the country houses. In tells us where something is. Into tells us where something is headed. So I want you to think about if I shot an arrow at you and it went into you, that's accusative. But if you go to the hospital and you walk into the hospital, accusative, because you're telling us where you're going. But then you say, doctor, there's an arrow in me. Ablative. Tells us where it is. Not where it's headed, where it is. And that's the difference. Into, in plus the accusative, is motion to or toward or into, right? So that's accusative because you're telling us where it's headed. It's still in motion. In tells us a static existence, okay? Now, I could be walking around in the forest, absolutely, but I'm not entering into the forest. There's a difference there, okay? So think of the arrow that is either in you or it's going into you, okay? Now, what I want you to do with that is to read pages 64 and 65 because it talks about that quite a bit. Don't worry about the chart because it leaves off the genitive, so it's not worth it. But what I want you to do after that is exercises 9C and 9D, okay? And it's all about, does this take the accusative or the ablative? So 9C, remember SIDSPACE. SIDSPACE is your ablatives, okay? All the rest are going to be accusative. So if it's not SIDSPACE, then it's accusative, okay? So number one, Marcus ad is not SIDSPACE, so it's going to take the accusative. Ad arborem sedet. Marcus sits at the tree. So what I want you to do is highlight the word that you chose, okay? So you just type in Marcus ad arborem sedet, and then highlight arborem. Now, if you need to use an ablative, if you hold down the vowel key, it should bring up a series of options, and then you choose the one with the macron over it, all right? So number two, puelai a, that's SIDSPACE, so that takes an ablative. You don't even have to think. E silwa, ad is not SIDSPACE. Wilam, ambulant. The girls walk out of the forest toward the country house. So I've done 2 of them for you. You got the other 8, okay? Then in exercise 9D, I want you to write out the prompt, out of her own country house, and then next, or just do it on the next line down, okay? Write e sua wila, and there's a macron over the A in both of those, okay? So that's how that works. So do 9C and 9D and turn those into me, all right? That shouldn't be too much of a problem. Okay, so you've done 9E, and now you're doing 9C and 9D, all right? Cool, I'm gonna hit the button.